when she walks to school. She's got to get up early.
Police found Roger Trautman in an alley behind his recording studio, bleeding to death from 4 gunshot wounds. A few blocks away, Larry Troutman's car had slammed into a tree after he shot himself in the head with a bullet from the same gun.
Phone rang. I pushed an answer, and it was Shirley Murdoch on the other end. She said, Roger has been shot. I said, what?
So tonight, I want to know, can I get crazy tonight?
It's a normal morning for Roger Trauman, walking out of the recording studio, suddenly finding himself with a gun pointed towards him. The music legend was gunned down in broad daylight by his own brother, Larry Troutman.
And I said, then you're rich. And he said, what if I owe 4?
Behind the talkbox magic and platinum records, his life was tangled in family drama, business feuds, and financial debt. So let's dive deeper into Roger Trautman and the events that led to his death. Roger Trautman was born in Hamilton, Ohio. He was the 4th of 9 children. Life was not easy, but they were a close family. The children shared everything, including their sleeping space. They fought sometimes, but they always looked out for each other. Roger's father, Rufus Troutman Sr., worked at a paper mill and also drove a truck to support his family. His mother, Addie, stayed at home to take care of the children and the house. Even with little money, the family found ways to have fun. Music became an important part of their lives.
When my parents saw that I was interested in music, my father used to say, I would say, look, Dad, would you please buy me a guitar? Please buy me a guitar. And he'd say, no way, boy, I ain't gonna buy you nothing unless you can prove you can play it.
One day, when Roger was just 3 years old, his parents took him to a local store. When they got home, Roger kept asking his father for something he saw in the store. He was too young to say the word clearly. So Roger pulled his father's hand and pointed to a rack of guitars. "Da!" he said excitedly. His father kept his promise and bought the guitar. From that moment, Roger never let go of it. He watched musicians on TV and listened to songs on the radio. He started playing music just by hearing it. He never needed lessons. Soon, people came to see the little boy who could play the guitar so well.
Around Hamilton, Ohio, the Cincinnati, Dayton area, where I just performed everywhere, every kind of talent program and did everything I could do to make it. And then I met
Roger's mother first thought he was too young to perform, but by the time he was 6 years old, she allowed him to enter talent shows. His brothers and sisters joined in, and the family became known for their musical talent. Hamilton, Ohio, was between 2 big cities, Cincinnati and Dayton. Because of this, Roger and his family had many chances to perform in local competitions. They won almost every time. As Roger grew older, he formed different bands with his brothers. Some of these bands were Little Roger and the Vells and Roger and the Human Body. In 1977, he and his band, The Human Body, released their first song, Freedom. 2 years later, famous musician George Clinton discovered Roger and his brothers. Clinton helped them sign a music deal under the name Zapp in 1979. The band included Roger and his brothers Larry, Lester, and Terry, along with Gregory Jackson and Bobby Glover. Zapp got their first big break when they performed on the Funk Music Awards show. But in April 1999, something terrible happened that shocked everyone. Roger was found dead in an alleyway early in the morning. He had been shot multiple times. Witnesses said he was in a car when he was attacked. He tried to get out, but the driver shot him and then drove away. Not long after, police found a car that looked like the one from the crime scene. Inside was Roger's older brother, Larry Troutman. Larry was a businessman and had been managing Roger's career for many years. But something went very wrong between them.
Roger was wanting to do some things a little more independently, as an artist, but
after allegedly shooting Roger, Larry drove a short distance before crashing his car into a tree. Before the police could reach him, he turned the gun on himself and took his own life. The Troutman family was devastated. Losing one family member is painful, but losing two in the same day was unbearable. The family came together to grieve and tried to understand what had happened. People had heard that the brothers were having problems, but no one expected it to end in such a terrible way.
My hero, my best friend, my hero, my two brothers. Oh my God, I was done, man. I was done. I was done. I was done. It's done.
Some reports say that Roger was planning to fire Larry as his manager. The two had worked together for 25 years, but Roger wanted to go solo. This meant Larry would no longer be in charge of his career. Money, power, and business disagreements may have played a role in what happened. Some say Larry could not handle the idea of losing his role in Roger's success.
Roger was wanting to do some things a little more independently, as an artist, but
the brothers had been arguing a lot before the tragedy. They fought over band plans, finances, and other issues. Family members knew things were tense, but they never imagined it would lead to something so extreme. People close to them said Roger was making big changes in his life and career. Maybe this made Larry feel upset or left out.
Because you need to learn to get your brothers, and from that day on, I've really been incorporated, with my brothers, and that's basically how we keep going right now. The guy that was giving you trouble before the show is my brother. He's my road manager.
Larry Troutman, another brother, spoke about the pain of losing Roger and Larry. He said he was most upset that Roger was gone, and that whatever was going on inside Larry's mind made him do such a horrible thing. It was hard for the family to accept, and they were left with many questions that would never be answered. When the funeral was held, thousands of people showed up. Friends, fans, and fellow musicians came to say goodbye. Roger had left behind 6 sons and 5 daughters. People sent flowers, and the funeral was filled with love and sorrow. A special tribute was given when their nephew performed Amazing Grace using a talkbox, a signature sound of Roger Trautman's music. Addie Troutman believed that her children needed to stay together. She knew that healing would come from supporting each other. She encouraged them to keep playing music, saying it was the best way to honor Roger. It's what he would have wanted, she told them. The surviving band members listened to her and decided to continue the band.
We dedicate this new CD to the memory of our big brother, our leader.
In 2003, they released an album under the independent label Zapp Records. The album, Zapp 6, backed by popular demand, was well received by fans. Though they stopped making new records, they still perform live shows across the United States. At every concert, they pay tribute to Roger by playing videos of his most famous performances. Fans love seeing these moments, remembering the talent and energy Roger brought to the stage. His influence on music has not faded.
When she walks to school, she's got to get up early.
Many artists have been inspired by Roger's unique sound. Famous musicians like T-Pain, Kanye West, and DJ Quick have used samples from his music in their own songs. His style continues to shape modern music, proving that his legacy lives on even after his passing. His impact on the industry is undeniable, and many new artists look up to him. Roger's death, however, remains a tragic mystery. A witness reported seeing a car that matched the description of Larry Troutman's vehicle leaving the crime scene. When police found Larry, he had a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver, the same type of gun used to kill Roger. This led investigators to believe that Larry had shot Roger before turning the gun on himself. Since there were no clear witnesses to the crime, police ruled it a murder-suicide.
Would any of us have? I never saw it coming.
Even today, no one knows exactly why Larry did what he did. Some believe it was business problems, while others think it was something deeper. The tragic event left a lasting impact on the music world and on those who loved the Troutman brothers. Roger loved music from a young age. When people started calling him Little Roger, he became well known in his neighborhood. His brothers saw how popular he was and wanted to be part of it too. So, they formed a music group called Little Roger and the Fabulous Vells. Roger was not just a good singer. He could also play multiple instruments at the same time.
And once I was pretty good on a lot of instruments, I started teaching other guys how to play, and I tried to put a group.
He played the bass, organ, and guitar, sometimes all at once. He even taught his brothers and other kids in the neighborhood how to play music. Around that time, they met another musician named Bootsy Collins, who was also trying to make it big. Bootsy loved their music and saw Roger's talent. He promised Roger that when he became successful, he would come back and help them. In 1976, Roger changed the group's name to Roger and the Human Body. The band now included his brother Terry and their friend Gregory Jackson, who played the keyboard and bass. His other brother, Lester, played the drums and had been with him from the start. Then, their older brother Larry returned from serving in the Vietnam War and joined the band as well. Larry played the congas and also handled the group's business and management. They wanted full control of their music, so they created their own record label called Troutman Records. Their first song was Freedom, and this was the first time Roger used the talkbox, a device that made his voice sound robotic. But in 1977, Roger changed the band's name again. This time, they became Zapp, which was a nickname for his brother Terry. Now that they had their new name, they wanted to take their career to the next level. They started performing in clubs all across the United States. They wanted to get noticed and create a buzz. One night, while playing at a club, their old friend Bootsy Collins showed up. By this time, Bootsy had already played with James Brown and was now working with George Clinton and the famous funk group Parliament Funkadelic. Bootsy and George Clinton loved their performance and invited Roger and his band to Detroit to record their demo. George Clinton was so impressed that he signed them to his record label, Uncle Jam Records. He even planned a solo album for Roger. But this is where things took a turn. Instead of releasing his solo album with George Clinton, Roger signed a different deal with Warner Bros. Records. If Roger had stayed with George Clinton would have gained more power in the music world. But Warner Bros. Knew that Roger was special, and they offered him a lot of money to sign with them. In the end, Roger took their offer, changing his path in the music industry forever.
I met Bootsy Collins and George Clinton, and they introduced me to the key people at Warner Brothers and gave me total freedom in the studio, paid for everything.
There was a big legal fight between George Clinton, Zapp, and Warner Brothers Records. They were arguing over their recording contracts. After some years, they finally settled the problem. Some people believe this legal battle hurt George Clinton's music career. Roger had money problems. He had issues with his recording label and was not getting all the money he deserved. There were fights over royalties, which are payments musicians get for their songs. These problems caused a lot of stress for him. Roger also had legal troubles. He was sued because of unpaid royalties. This added more stress to his life and made his financial problems even worse. It seemed like no matter how successful he was, problems kept coming his way. In the late 1990s, Roger's music was not as popular as before. New styles of music were taking over, and he was not getting as many chances to perform. This made his money problems even worse because performing was how he made most of his income. Another of his big problems was his health. Roger had a stroke, which made it hard for him to perform. Music was his life, so this was very difficult for him. His career started to slow down because he couldn't perform like before. But Roger still made great music. He remade the song A Thin Line Between Love and Hate with Shirley Murdock and the group H-Town for Martin Lawrence's movie. One of his biggest songs was California Love with Tupac and Dr. Dre. The song became a huge hit and sold over 2 million copies in less than a month. Because of this, Roger became popular again. Many rappers wanted to work with him, and he made a lot of money. Some rappers paid him cash for his work. Rapper Tech N9 said he paid Roger $25,000 for one song. The talkbox was Roger's signature sound. In 1980, Zapp released their first album, and it became a huge success. Their lead single, More Bounce to the Ounce, became a hit. It reached number 2 on the R&B charts. Everywhere you went, people were playing that song. If you walked down the street, you could hear it blasting from car speakers. Every time it played in the club, the dance floor got packed. The song was nearly 10 minutes long, and Roger Trautman's use of the talkbox made it unique. People had never heard anything like it before. The talkbox was Roger's signature sound. If you don't know what a talkbox is, think of auto-tune today. It changes a person's voice by running it through an instrument. Roger first heard about the talkbox from musicians like Peter Frampton. He started using it while performing cover songs in clubs, even before he had hit records. But he wasn't the first to use it in R&B music. Stevie Wonder had already used it in 1973. However, Roger took it to another level and made it famous in funk music. What people didn't know was that using the talkbox caused health problems for Roger. Because he had to put a plastic tube in his mouth to make the sound, saliva would build up inside it. This caused throat infections and stomach problems. Roger got sick many times because of it. One person had to guard it because other artists tried to steal it and use it for themselves. In 1981, Roger released his first solo album, The Many Facets of Roger. The album became a hit, going platinum. It had popular songs like So Rough, So Tough, and his cover of Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine. That song went to number 1 on the R&B charts. At the same time, another superstar was taking over the music scene, Prince. Prince's Controversy Tour in 1981 was one of the biggest tours of that year. Since Roger and Zapp were signed to Warner Brothers Records, the label decided to add them to the tour. They became the second act, while Morris Day and The Time opened the show. People say that tour was wild. Women threw their underwear on stage at every concert. It was a crazy time for funk music.
It was seen to hypnotize them in a way. Yeah. And it really works. Watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Video Soul.
In 1982, Zapp dropped their second album, Zapp 2. This album also became a hit and went gold. One of the biggest songs from the album was Dance Floor, which reached number 1 on the R&B charts. Another hit from that album was Doo-Wah Diddy, Blow That Thing. That song was everywhere. Roger showed off his talent in a new way. Instead of using the talkbox, he switched it up and played the harmonica. Roger could play almost any instrument, and fans loved it. In 1983, Zapp released their third album, Zapp 3, which also went gold. That same year, Roger met a talented gospel singer named Shirley Murdock. Her cousin gave Roger a demo tape of her singing. Roger was so impressed that he immediately offered her a record deal. But Shirley turned it down at first because she only wanted to sing gospel music. After some time, she changed her mind and decided to give the record deal a chance. That decision led to a successful music career for her. In 1984, Roger released his second solo album, The Saga Continues. This album featured the song Girl, Cut It Out, and a cover of In the Midnight Hour by Wilson Pickett. The album did well, and In the Midnight Hour reached number 34 on the R&B charts. Roger kept pushing forward in the music industry, and his sound continued to influence future generations of artists. Fans continue to celebrate his music, keeping his memory alive. Rest in peace, Roger Trautman. But the controversy surrounding the Troutman family didn't end with Larry and Roger. Years later, Brent, Roger's son, would also be involved in a tragic crime.
This is my son. I want you to watch him play. Come on out here, boy. Play that music.
Brent was found guilty of killing his ex-girlfriend, Carolyn Leet, in 2012. The court sentenced him to 32 years in prison for the crime. Carolyn, a 32-year-old artist and nanny, was found dead in Brent's home. Her head was covered in blood, and there was a large blood splatter on the wall. The police believed Brent was responsible for her death. Brent and Carolyn had been in a relationship for 2 to 3 years. On the night of the murder, Brent claimed that Carolyn was drunk and he tried to throw her onto the bed. However, he said she missed the bed and hit her head on the floor. He said that all the blood was coming from her nose. Brent also told the police that he poured water on Carolyn to wake her up, but she did not respond. The medical examiner found that Carolyn's blood alcohol level was very low, much lower than the legal limit for driving. This meant she was not very drunk at the time of her death. The cause of death was a serious head injury from a physical attack. She had many bruises on her head and body, a fractured rib, and broken bones in her face. The injuries showed that she had been beaten badly before she died. On the night of the crime, a woman called 911 around 6 a.m., asking for police and an ambulance. When the police arrived at Brent's home, they found Carolyn lying on a bed with her legs hanging off the side. Her clothes were not fully on, and her head was covered in blood. She had many bruises on her arms and scratches on her hands, which looked like she had tried to fight back. The police also found blood at the bottom of the stairs and on the walls. It looked like a struggle had happened before Carolyn was placed on the bed. Blood drops were found on the stairs and even on a bookshelf. The scene told a clear story. Carolyn had suffered a violent attack before she died. Brent's mother, Brenda Lynch, told police that her son had called her around 3 a.m. that night. He said something about Carolyn letting someone steal a car. She knew he had been drinking and refused to pick him up. She said Brent could be very aggressive when he was drunk, and she was scared of him. She asked her sister to go get him instead. Brent's aunt, Glenda Jett, went to pick up Brent and Carolyn at around 4 a.m. Around 6 a.m., Brent called his aunt again and asked her to come over. When she arrived, she found Carolyn covered in blood and not responding. Brent kept asking if Carolyn was going to wake up. A neighbor who had medical training tried to help Carolyn, but she was already cold to the touch. She had been dead for some time. As police were investigating, they saw a taxi driving slowly in the area. A man waved it down and got inside. The police stopped the taxi and found Brent inside. They arrested him on the spot. At the police station, Brent looked down and shook his head. He said, "It wasn't supposed to go down like this. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was the alcohol." He also told jail staff, "Please be nice to me. I'm here for a long time." Brent had a history of violence against women. He had 4 past felony charges, including making threats to a pregnant girlfriend and assaulting another woman. He had also damaged property in a separate case. Brent Lynch's crime was another dark chapter in the troubled history of the Troutman family. And that is all for today. Until next time, bye.